My name is Heather Ann Parker Rowe. I am an aura photographer and small business owner. I moved here to Des Moines from Chicago, before that San Diego. I was born in Florida, so it's like a laundry list of states, but I live in Des Moines now. My business, Kin, has been in business for 7 years as of this month. Kin is a mystical shop in the East Village. We specialize in modern and vintage jewelry, which vintage jewelry is my passion, and how this whole business was born is I had a little bit of a hoarding problem when I moved to Des Moines. My husband, who's from here, is like, do you need two 16-foot moving trucks? And I said, yeah, because one day I'm gonna have a shop. I had collected things from all these different places I had lived. And vintage jewelry, especially turquoise jewelry, has always really moved me. At the time, I opened it in 2017, September of 2017, I had a partner. They bailed on me 7 months in, and then it kind of progressed from there. I reopened it. I ended up adding more things that really just spoke to me. Women-owned lines, especially made in the 50 states. I never set out to sell all of these things like crystals and intentional goods. It just kind of built upon itself. Like I had my dad's crystals on display along with some of mine from my personal collection, and people would inquire about them and ask if they were for sale. I have a pretty good eye when it comes to jewelry, and I love my own crystals, so I could bring in a little bit at a time and see if they speak to people. And then that kind of built into what it is today. Things that you can wear and smell and touch that maybe makes your day better because you're really drawn to it, or the vibrations fit what you need right now. I want everybody to feel accepted at whatever place they're in when they come into my shop. I want them to feel comfortable and safe. I don't want them to think anyone's gonna upsell them, or that we have sales goals, or that we're gonna be upset if they don't buy anything, because we are not that kind of shop. We have some really beautiful things that you can look at if you're called to purchase any of them. The aura photography came about because I love having pop-ups. I love the vibe it brings into the shop. I love that people can come into the shop and experience something either new to them or something that maybe they need that day or at that point in their lives. We have really cool, great tarot card readers and mediums and psychics. We've had a palm reader from Iowa City who is amazing. I was working with this aura photographer out of Cedar Rapids, and he was older, in his 80s, and he would come and do these pop-ups, and I always watched everything. I mean, it was so fascinating to me, these photos, and people really took to it. Sadly, he passed away in 2020 during the pandemic. I was kind of called to continue that on my own. And at first I had a lot of doubt in myself, like, how can I ever be as good as Larry? You know, energy that he has is so incredible, and how at ease he made people feel, and how good at it he was, because he had been doing it for literally 40 years. His spirit kind of guides me, and I did learn a lot from him unintentionally. I just paid a lot of attention to what he was doing. And when I was presented with the opportunity to get my own camera, I did, and I spent months and months and months studying it and reading every book I could on auras and aura photography. And aura photography is this very specific thing where it's a special camera. It's been converted from an old Polaroid land camera. Kirlian photography was coined in 1939 when a Soviet scientist named Semyon Kirlian discovered that he could capture the coronal ejections from humans with a special technology. It's similar to when we are lucky enough to see the aurora borealis. Everything has energy, and everything has electromagnetic energy. You put your hands on these plates, it reads the energy and it translates that into a photograph. And then I interpret that photograph, and I use a combination of the traditional wisdom that Larry Kennedy used, and then I also did a lot of studying, made a lot of my own conclusions based on a group of modern aura photographers that I dialogue with, and we workshop things. Also things that I just noticed after almost 4 years of doing this on my own. I will notice very specific patterns for people who are pregnant, or, familial patterns within couples and whatnot. And I will update my color sheet based on new discoveries. For example, over the pandemic, when we were able to kind of be around other humans again and be social, a lot of us started noticing people were photographing a lot in blue. And blue is interpreted as this like deeply feeling color, somebody who is very in touch with their emotions. But another word I like to use for blue is processing. Maybe they're doing some inner work. For a lot of people during COVID, they ran out of things to kind of rearrange in their houses, and add on. And so they started looking inward. People I know weren't photographing as blue before the pandemic, were photographing as blue during. And it gave us a lot of food for thought in the aura photography world in terms of it does seem like people are kind of going inward and doing some work on themselves. And it was really neat to see that. It's interesting to see someone's trajectory too. We settle into our energetic identity in adolescence, say. And most of us tend to hold on to the same energetic identity, but I can often see current events at the top of the photo. But there are a few people who are energetic chameleons, and I feel like they change their color every time they sit down in the chair, and it's wild. For a lot of people, you can have your aura, but you can go through particular phases in your life, and that will come through in a different color that is your normal color. And this phase could be quick and it could be long, but it's always a lesson, right? If you're photographing as green, it could be a major change, healing, or growth, or a big expansion and a transformation. I like to think of it as a leveling up. If you're photographing as red, but you're not usually red, it's usually like a deadline-oriented thing. That usually kind of phases out when you're not in that mode anymore. Some people like to compare their photos. They'll do it like quarterly, or they'll do it every year on their birthday. I just saw somebody that hadn't been in for a couple of years, and they were so excited to see what their aura looked like because they've been like putting in a lot of work on themselves. And you could really see it in the picture. It was neat. So that's a combination of red and orange, and I'm normally in orange. It's mostly red. And I had been feet to the fire, working really, really hard. And then I had all this purple happening for me over my chakras and up above. And the purple is a very compassionate, visionary, dreamy color. It's a color of thoughtfulness, ideas. And that's when I was kind of coming up with a new little facet that I would be incorporating into my home and business. I don't think I would photograph as that again unless I was in that really similar energy where it was almost frenetic. There was a lot going on, but I'll tell you what, if you ever want to get something done, give it to a red because they're going to get it done. So I think aura photography is really unique in that this is a photographic snapshot of your energy and your energetic identity at that time. It can tell a lot about where you are, what you're battling, what you're doing, maybe allow you to kind of realize how far you've come on your journey or where you are on your journey. I love it because it seems to bring people a sense of happiness and peace, acknowledgement that they're on the right track. And then what we do also is we pull a couple cards when you're at the shop and we talk about the message for right now. As humans, I don't think we remember how hard maybe sometimes in our lives were. And having a snapshot of the energy at a specific time in your life, you can remember and go back and be oh, this was a time when I was really happy and at peace, or this was a time when I was really struggling with this one issue and working super hard to get at this particular place. And being able to kind of demarcate and remember how hard we worked, I think is a great tool in terms of self-care, because it's great to acknowledge how hard we can work at some things. I would say my biggest motivators would be my kids. I love that they get to see their mom work really hard at something, she really has a lot of passion for. They get to see, the heartaches that come with it and the lessons that come with it, but they also get to see the triumphs, how happy it can make me at times. As I get older, I start to think more about what kind of energy I want to have left in the world. As my husband always says, like, use it or lose it. We're not gonna be young and healthy forever. So while we can leave the house and ambulate and go and make conversation with people, I'm gonna enjoy that for every minute I can. You know, if you're excited about something, go do it while you still can. In 7 years, I've really learned how much the community is willing to show up and support small business. I've really learned how much communities like the East Village go out of their way to help and support each other. I love meeting new people. I love meeting more and more people in this amazing city of ours. Having people come back even twice or tell somebody about the shop can be so huge and so amazing because, you know, as this becomes more mainstream, you can make a choice, you know, do I want to go to the mall now and go get a crystal, or do I want to order it online, or should I shop local? One thing that makes Kin stand out more, I don't put anything in that store that I haven't like touched or seen or vetted. And I try to pick out things that really speak to me or that I know my customers are looking for. I would just love to keep existing in terms of the shop. Every year we survive is a blessing. You know, you never know. I'm happy with where we are. For the camera, I am in the process of getting a second one for events, and I'm really excited about the possibilities that this could open up. I could be doing some big events and maybe some fairs, and maybe people might want it for a wedding or whatnot, or a cool party. And to be able to have another one could be an amazing sort of new avenue. It'll be crazy, but I would love to explore it and see how it goes. How people can find the shop. They can go to the website, which is kindsm.com. Our Instagram is kin.dsm. The Instagram for the Kinderdoras is just @Kinderdoras. You can book an Aura photo from any of those platforms, including Facebook, as long as there's dates coming up. And I open up the dates for the next month, kind of mid to third week of the month prior. People can find and book us from the website, from Instagram, and from Facebook. We are at 333 East Grand Avenue in the East Village, number 106. It's technically on East 4th, not East Grand. It's an L-shaped building, which is confusing. But I always just say we're across from Zombie Burger, and most people know where that is. And what we'll do is, if you want to come on by and get an Aura photo, you can do that. We can take cash, Venmo, cards, we can do all that. And then you can sit down, take your picture, I'll give you a brief reading. You'll walk away with color sheet and a little folder, and we'll go over what the colors mean and their placement. And I don't know, I think they can expect a good time.